My name is Dinara, and I am a women's health coach, and welcome to the Women's Wellness Corner. In this episode, I want to talk to you about stress, the importance of managing stress, how stress affects our female hormones, and the effects it can have on our health. And I also wanted to share with you some of my favorite tips on stress management and helping you manage your stress response and manage your life in general, so that way stress doesn't take over your life. If you live in the modern day world, you're probably exposed to many stressors on a daily basis. From work to daily chores, to pressing deadlines, to continuously going off notifications, and especially if you're a woman, because women in general tend to have a very hard time saying no and try to help everyone around them, often forgetting that we have to prioritize our own health before we're able to help the other person. Today we know that women are 50% more burned out than men. So addressing stress becomes very important, and not just important, but a very urgent matter for so many women. So what actually happens physiologically to our bodies when we get affected by stress? What sort of chemical reaction goes inside us, and how does it affect our health? This is something that I'd like to discuss in this episode. Whenever we get exposed to stressors, our body goes into a very ancient system called fight or flight mode. It's a very ancient system without our body that has been very useful to us in many ways. And it's been basically the draw line between survival or not survival. So it's been saving us for a long time. And this is just how we inherently respond to stress. This fight and flight mode has been very useful to us, especially during ancient caveman days, because during those times, if we have ever been chased by a lion, it was important that our body would kick in this sort of superpowers through our stress response in order for us to be able to run away from the lion and save our lives. However, today, we no longer live in the savannas, we no longer have lions chasing us, yet our body reacts in exact same way to any stressors that we get to exposed to on a daily basis. Stress affects our health in many ways. Specifically, there is a very strong connection between our brain and our gut. So whenever we get stressed, we quite often feel it in our bellies. If you have ever had an important meeting, or if you ever had a speech to give, or if you had an important interview, you typically notice these butterflies in your stomach. Some of us run to the toilet, some of us just begin to feel sick, and some of us can usually report some sort of digestive discomfort. And the reason being is because we've got a vagus nerve that travels between our brain and our stomach, and we've got a lot of neurons and receptacles within our gut that typically gets connected to our brain and responds to any stimuli that is outside of our body. In fact, 68% of people have reported that they have usually tummy aches whenever they get exposed to any stressful situation. Recently, I spoke to a woman that shared an experience of her son to demonstrate this example that I want to share with you. So it was her and her family that went on holidays, and over one of the dinners, her son did something that upset his son's uncle, or this woman's brother. And this woman's brother yelled at the son and made the remark about son's behavior. And upon returning back to the room, this woman's son told her that he's got a very bad tummy ache that has started when his uncle made the remark, which illustrates perfectly of how much the stress that we get exposed to affect our body, and specifically our gut. Another thing that stress tends to affect, especially for women, is our period or menstrual cycle. It can specifically hijack our brain and affect our ovulation, and a communication between hypothalamus and our ovaries, impair our ovulation, therefore impairing our periods. There's been quite a few reports to show that women have had a lot of challenges at the beginning of the pandemic because of the stress that they've been exposed to, the stress of the pandemic, not knowing what's going to happen. Many women reported that they had irregular periods, the periods have arrived late, or they may have missed their periods altogether. Another sort of stress that is quite dangerous to our body is called allostatic stress, otherwise wear and tear. And that stress occurs whenever we constantly exposed to chronic stress. Something like pandemic would be a perfect example. Over the course of almost 2 years, we have lived not necessarily knowing what's going to happen the next day, keeping us constantly at this alert stage. So that allostatic chronic stress can have very serious effects on our health. Or if you're somebody that has a very stressful job, or if you have an overly constant demand from you by your life, by your family, or by your work, this continuous state of chronic stress can affect our health. Let's talk about one of the main hormones that gets in play whenever we get stressed, and that hormone is called cortisol. Cortisol is a life-changing hormone because upon its release and upon activating our fight or flight mode, it can change our physiology and improve a short-term survival. As soon as we get stressed, we get a surge of cortisol release from our adrenal glands. At this point, our heart rate increases and a lot of our energy tends to draw out into our legs and into our limbs and away from our digestion. Hence why the reason the digestion gets so affected whenever we get exposed to stress continuously. It also tends to raise our blood sugar in order to give us that excess amount of energy to run away from danger. It makes us more alert and sends a lot of energy to our muscles. In the short term, it's a survival hormone and it can absolutely save us from danger. However, when we continue being exposed to this in the long term, it can affect our tissues and have pretty significant effect on our health. When cortisol stays high in our body for a prolonged period of time, it steals protein from our muscle and increases our insulin, which is our blood sugar hormone. It can weaken our immune system, disrupt ovulation, and therefore impair healthy periods. To say that managing stress is important is an understatement. Stress management techniques is certainly something that we need to implement on a daily basis. And today I wanted to share with you some of my favorite things that I do in order to manage stress in my life, and in hopes that you'd be able to adopt it and help you in your life. Number one is evoking any sort of activities that get you to evoke the emotion of joy. And whenever we experience joy, our body naturally goes into the parasympathetic nervous system, it calms down, and it tells our body that we're in a safe environment. Some of the things that give me a lot of joy is spending time with family, spending time with friends, and also spending time in nature. And luckily, we live in a beautiful province that allows us to explore a lot of parks and a lot of green spaces and constantly keep us in a state of joy and in a state of awe because of the beauty that we're surrounded by. For you, joy might look anything like cooking classes, maybe it's singing, maybe it's playing sports, maybe it's going for a run. Whatever gives you joy, make sure that you implement those activities as much as possible. Meditation and mindfulness has been shown to improve our nervous system and activate our parasympathetic nervous system. Specifically, anything that involves us breathing, taking deep breaths with our tummy, so activating our diaphragm and putting our body into rest and digest states. I often hear that many people say that they have challenges with meditations, that they're not very good at meditating, but actually it doesn't matter whether you're good or not. The entire premise of meditation to actually allow those thoughts to come true, not restrict the thoughts, which is what many people say that they have troubles with. Just close your eyes, take deep belly breaths, watch your breath, and allow those thoughts to come in and watch them as the clouds passing by. Thoughts comes in, they leave, come in, they leave. There's no danger with thoughts. The beautiful thing about them, they can't necessarily harm us, and they, as quickly as they arrive, as quickly they can depart. Yoga is another important and easy way to implement into your daily life in order to relax your mind. Yoga is very beneficial for women, specifically for balanced hormones and for that special mind and body connection. So whether you're doing a few stretches in the morning or you go to yoga classes, yoga is a very easy way to implement into your life and to bring in those stress management. Another one of my favorite ways to release stress is through earthing. Earthing, also known as grounding, and the whole premise of it is your feet making contact with an earth surface, and as you make contact with an earth surface, it releases these electrons. Walking barefoot outside or sitting outside or working with earth and with the ground in general can make you feel connected to the overall earth system. Energy of the earth transfers and grounds your body. Another way to manage stress is to manage your energy, knowing when to say no to things, as opposed to saying yes to everything without having any boundaries. If you have an activity, if somebody suggests that you should do something, I always recommend on measuring it on a scale of hell yes or hell no. If somebody is offering you something and you saying yes just to be polite, that means you could or could not be respecting your boundaries or taking on too much. If somebody offers to do something, unless it's a hell yes for you and you're really excited to do it, you're excited to jump into whatever that activity is, then go for it. If you're doubting it a little bit, that means it's a hell no. And if there is a way to say no or for an alternative or pass on in the activity, I would recommend implementing that and acting based on the hell yes and hell no system. Maintaining blood sugar is another important way to manage stress. Whenever our blood sugar is dysregulated, we get into the state of hyperglycemia, and for some of us it can show up as anxiety. We can begin feeling low energy, we can begin to worry. So keeping your blood sugar stable with a balanced meals of protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats with every meal, and without skipping breakfast, can be very important when it comes to managing your stress and keeping your body in this calm, collective state. The next important step is to get enough sleep. You should be aiming to get 8 or 9 hours of sleep per night, because this is the time when our body goes through restoration process. So we need to allow One of the other great ways to manage stress is through exercise. movement tends to reduce our cortisol, improve our insulin sensitivity, and remove chronic inflammation. So exercise doesn't mean it has to leave you sweaty. You can go for walks, you can enjoy nice yoga stretch, as long as you get out there and you get moving your body is pretty sufficient for keeping your stress at check and keeping your levels balanced. You can also take some vitamins and some supplements in order to help you manage stress. Supplements and vitamins are never my first choice in order to help your health, just because supplements won't necessarily supplement a bad diet or bad lifestyle habits. So I would first address the lifestyle habits, the movement, the right diet, the right nutrition, and then add supplementation in order to help your body, to help boost your body. Some of the good supplements in order to help to calm your nervous system is magnesium. Most of the women, about 90% of women within North America, are deficient to magnesium. And it's because magnesium involved in thousands of functions within our body. Specifically, magnesium is the first mineral that gets depleted whenever we get exposed to stress. So replenishing levels of magnesium is never a bad idea. B vitamins can help us reduce stress and anxiety, allow us to better manage our stress. And then there is a collection of herbs that's called adaptogens. And the reason that they're called adaptogens is because they essentially help our body adapt to stress, specifically to our adrenal glands. So some of the great adaptogen herbs that you can use in the times of stress are ashwagandha, maca powder. Those are some of my favorite tips that you can implement for stress. I urge you to make stress management activities as some of the number one on your priority, because you will see an immense return on your investment when it comes to your long-term health. I hope you were able to take some of these away. Perhaps you have some of your examples that help you manage stress. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a lovely day. We'll talk to you next time.